What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG. We like Magic and we like weird decks, and I hope you do too, because today we're going to talk about easily the weirdest deck in Standard right now, and the darling of the strange deck building community too, man. Today we're going to talk about Dagger Burn. Get ready, this is a fun one. Well, credit where it's due, I originally heard of this deck on Seth's channel.
Probably better known as Saffron Olive.
That guy. It was originally submitted by a viewer on Saffron's channel, but since then, not only has he revisited the deck, that's how much he liked it, but there are also tons of search results on Tapped Out in Standard and Modern for Dagger Burn, so a small part of the community is really taken to this deck, so I figured I'd do a version of it, profile it, just to increase its awareness. So without further ado here, let me show you what this deck is trying to do. Well, it wouldn't be Dagger Burn without Dowsing Dagger, which we're going to play a whole playset of here. It's the namesake of the deck, and it's actually our win condition. Like, this is what we're hoping to kill them with, and not through flipping it over into Lost Veil, which we can do sometimes when we want to, but for the most part, we're actually looking to abuse the downside here, the fact that they get 2/0/2 plant guys with Defender whenever we play a Dowsing Dagger. We're trying to kill them with that ability, so how do we do that? Well, the first thing you do is you play 4 copies of Trespasser's Curse. Hilarious, right? Yes, that's one of the main combos in the deck. Whenever you play a Dowsing Dagger, as long as you got a Curse out, you're draining at least 2. 4-point life swing, that's not bad. You know, if you've got multiple Curses out, that's even better, obviously, but we've got ways in the deck of making the combo a lot more formidable, we'll say, but we'll talk about those in just a second. Let me just pause for a moment to talk about how good Trespasser's Curse is even without Dowsing Dagger. Now, against aggro, this will help you stay in the game a little bit longer than you normally would, a turn or two, you know, but a turn or two really counts against aggro, and it'll take some points off their life total too, which you care about just a little bit. I love that this will gain you a little bit of life. Drains are important against aggro. Against tokens, you're completely hosing everything that they do, and against Whirler Virtuoso, you're kind of completely hosing it too. So, just Trespasser's Curse has a lot of applications right now, even without Dagger. It's a solid card. We're also going to play 2 copies, just 2 copies, of Rampaging Ferocidon as copies sort of 5 and 6 of Trespasser's Curse in the deck. They are a little at odds with each other. You know, Ferocidon negates the life gain from Trespasser's Curse, but if you've got both a Ferocidon and a Trespasser's Curse in play, the life gain is the last thing you're worried about. You know, just a Dowsing Dagger or 2 will end the game at that point pretty easily. So there's also the fact that Ferocidon can block and occasionally even attack, which can sometimes be important if you're playing against a deck that has like very little creatures in it. So I like Ferocidon, but I don't feel the need to play 8 of this effect. I think 6 is enough. We've got plenty of ways to find this effect through card draw and digging and stuff like that. So I didn't feel like 8 was, you know, really warranted or necessary. 6 felt about right. We're also going to play 4 copies of a card that I hadn't played with in a really long time, and I'm super glad I got to mess around with again, because this is one of my favorite cards in the entire format right now. We're going to play a whole play set of Panharmonicon, because for some reason it's not legendary. Now, once you get a Trespasser's Curse and a Panharmonicon down, this is when Dowsing Dagger can start doing some really crazy stuff. Because of the way Panharmonicon is worded, this is what happens. You play your Dowsing Dagger, well, it triggers twice. Artifact entered the battlefield, triggered itself, so they get 4 plant tokens over there. It also triggers your Trespasser's Curse double times, so just casting a Dowsing Dagger while you have a Panharmonicon and a Curse out will end up dealing 8 damage to your opponent, and you gain 8 life. Just a couple of those will end the game real quick. In a lot of ways, this is really a Panharmonicon deck, you know. Obviously, Dowsing Dagger, every card I've shown you so far, Dowsing Dagger, Trespasser's Curse, Rampaging Ferocidon, they'll all get extra triggers because of Panharmonicon, but there are like 11 other slots in the deck that trigger Panharmonicon and you can do crazy stuff with. So this is in some ways a Panharmonicon deck. We're taking full well advantage of the fact that we're playing this card. And once you get extras in play, it becomes math, and that's kind of terrible, but it still gets crazy very fast when you just play 1 card. But those are sort of the bones of the combo right there, you know, Dowsing Dagger, Panharmonicon, Trespasser's Curse, or Ferocidon is how you're going to try and win a lot of your games, because just dropping a couple of Dowsing Daggers in that situation, especially if you've got multiple Panharmonicons, multiple Curses, whatever, you can just end the game all in one shot for just a couple of mana. really, really quickly. But the rest of this deck is all just kind of support for a combo and ways to extend it and get to it and find it and all that. So we'll start with probably the best support piece in the entire deck and something else that can just sort of end the game, depending on your board position, the 2 copies of Saheeli Rai. Just like Panharmonicon, this is another card that we haven't seen in a good long time, and I love her in this context. I hated her in the make infinite cats and kill you context. That was terrible, but it's good to see old Saheeli again, especially when she's doing something this silly. We're mostly looking to abuse her second ability. We're trying to copy Dowsing Dagger and get all those triggers again off Panharmonicon and Curse and all that. And essentially you can just like copy it 2 or 3 times, off of a Saheeli Rai over the course of a few turns and win the game that way. It's sort of a way to play Dowsing Dagger even if you don't have a Dowsing Dagger in your hand, and that's important enough. But you can also copy the Panharmonicon and do crazy stuff with that. You can copy a couple of the other artifacts that we're playing in the deck and get, Enter the Battlefield triggers off of them too. So there's a lot that Saheeli Rai can do in this deck, but mostly we're just looking to copy Dowsing Dagger and kill them as quickly as possible. And just in case you don't have any of those other artifacts in play, like Dowsing Dagger or Panharmonicon, you can copy Prophetic Prism with the Saheeli Rai if you want to and draw a card off of it. Prophetic Prism is actually a lot more important than it might look, to the naked eye at least. This, first of all, fills out our curve. It's something to play on turn 2 if we don't have a curse. There's that. Or a Dowsing Dagger. But you'll almost never, ever, ever play Dowsing Dagger on turn 2. You just want to wait until you're set up to play Dowsing Dagger. Prophetic Prism is a great turn 2 play, though, Not only does it draw us a card, help us find combo pieces, but it also fixes our mana, because in case you didn't notice, this is a 3-color deck. So a lot of the things that Prophetic Prism does are just perfect for this deck. Let's play that card. Speaking of perfect for the deck, we're going to play a playset of Glint Nest Crane in here too. Obviously, this finds our 2 biggest combo pieces, Panharmonicon and Dowsing Dagger. Helps us find those pretty easily, and it chump blocks for us, helping to extend the game so we can get to our combo. It's just really kind of doesn't get any better than that. And sometimes it can even attack, slap a Dowsing Dagger on it. Not only are you swinging over for 3 in the air, but it becomes really easy to transform into the Lotus Veil if you want to. But again, you don't often want to, because once you play your Saheeli Rai, you want to have Dowsing Daggers to copy. So you won't always want to do it, but it's a really easy way to transform into Lotus Veil if you want to. Not only that, but if you have a Panharmonicon in play, obviously you get its ET Big trigger twice. You get to look through essentially 8 cards and pick sometimes 2 Dowsing Daggers, which is often game over. So, or another Panharmonicon or whatever. Getting to dig 8 cards off of 2 triggers is kind of crazy, so I should mention that. Actually, the other 2 creatures we're playing in the deck are also crazy when you double their ETB triggers, so I'll tell you about those. First of all, we're just going to play 2 copies of Champion of Wits, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I really wanted this deck to be right around $100, and if the budget were higher, then we'd definitely play probably more copies of Champion of Wits. Just a fantastic card that's awesome when you get, extra ETB triggers with it. If it's a great chump blocker too, and if it does die, you can always eternalize it later and get crazy extra value off of it in Panharmonicon. There's just so much to like about Champion of Wits in this deck. Just another thing that, like Glint Nest Crane, allows us to dig into the deck a little bit, find our combo pieces, and puts a creature on the battlefield to chump block and extend the game. Just everything about Champion of Wits is amazing. And here's a fun addition. We're going to play 1 copy of Deadeye Quartermaster in the deck. I know it's a 4-mana card, but I've seen versions of the deck playing like 8 4-drops and such, so I don't feel bad about playing 5 4-drops. Deadeye Quartermaster is just insane because if we've still got 2 Dowsing Daggers left in our deck and we play this with a Panharmonicon on the battlefield, we're going to get 2 Dowsing Daggers, son, and we're going to end the game, and that's crazy. But even if we don't have a Panharmonicon out, just going and getting 1 Dowsing Dagger is probably value enough, especially when it comes with a body. Now, the rest of the deck is spells, and most of those spells take the form of interaction because we really can't afford to not interact with our opponent. But the only other sort of non-interaction spell, non-removal spell really, is the 3 copies of Opt that we're playing. Now, I'm really, really tempted to push it to 4 copies of Opt here, but I think we need all the lands that are in the deck. So I don't want to push it to 4 copies. I think 3 is fine. This will help us find our combo pieces for just 1 mana. So Opt is definitely in the deck. Whether it's a 3 of or 4 of is up to you, but it's in the deck. Now, as far as removal here, let's go to the graphics so I can show you all 3 of our pieces. We're going to play 3 copies of Abrade, 2 copies of Unlicensed Disintegration, and 2 copies of Fiery Cannonade. Now, you see a lot of these decks play a couple of copies or even 3 copies of Fatal Push in the main deck. Again, I'm trying to get the budget down, but Fatal Push would be good over a Braid, I think. But a Braid is still great for most early game creatures that you're going to come across, and there's the added benefit of being able to kill Godfarer's Gift and a bunch of other artifacts in the format. So at least a Braid, if not Fatal Push, is our sort of, low-cost removal spell at instant speed. Unlicensed Disintegration is pretty good, considering we've got a butt-ton of artifacts in the deck, and it can kill just any old creature that doesn't have Indestructible. So it's just a fantastic piece of instant speed removal that can sometimes deal the last 3 damage. This is also good reach against a lot of late game creatures. Just blow away their big 5 or 6 mana answer they wanted to play and deal extra damage to them is a blowout sometimes. So I still like Unlicensed. We're going to play at least a couple of copies. And then Fiery Cannonade is probably the addition to the deck that I've made that I feel has improved it the most. To be honest, we are terrible against Ramunap Red and most any fast aggro deck, and Fiery Cannonade really helps solve that problem in a splashable card, which is also instant speed, which is really important. But Fiery Cannonade is going to do really well against Ramunap Red. It's going to do good against a field full of tokens or, 4 or 5 Thopters that have been made by a Virtuoso. There's a lot of stuff that Fiery Cannonade can stop for us. And again, it's very splashable on this 3-color deck, which we're definitely looking for. I know I've been going on about Cannonade for a while, so I'll just finish my thoughts up here by saying that I think the deck does need some form of main deck board wipe in order to be viable in any way. I mean, obviously, the deck isn't necessarily looking to be, a Tier 1 or Tier 2 even deck, but for the deck to win some games against its worst matchups, I think we do need main deck mass removal. And again, I just think that Cannonade is one of the best and obviously the most budget option that we can play. Now here are your lands right here. This is another place that you can make some changes if your wallet is just a little bit fatter or if you already have some cards. You want more Spirebluff Canal, you want more Drowned Catacomb, but this is the best I could do on a budget. And cards like Evolving Wilds are very effective, surprisingly effective to some players at fixing your mana for you. A lot of our lands come into play tapped here, which kind of sucks, but we're also sort of a slow roll combo deck that doesn't have a whole lot to do on turn 1, so we don't care that a bunch of our lands come into play tapped, or at least not as much. So this is the best I could do on the budget, but again, if you have a couple extra bucks, there are some things you can do to fix it up. And here's our sideboard right here. We're going to play all 4 copies of Duress. Some people would say Kitesail Freebooter, especially in a Panharmonicon deck. It makes plenty of sense, but I kind of don't like that they can just kill our Freebooter and get their spell back. I am beginning to not care for that, especially in this deck where, it's not like Kitesail in Modern where you take their spell and you kill them 2 turns later. This deck is not like that at all, so I like Duress a lot more in this slot. It's great against Control, and Control is pretty good against us because they can just counter stuff, and they don't play creatures. We have to kill them with Dowsing Dagger. So I like Duress. I think it's a great spell against Control, and it only costs 1 mana. Essence Scatter is on the other side. It's very good against the aggro matchup, which we suffer in, and this is also good on the play against stuff like Longtusk Cub out of Energy. So I really like having the option of siding in Essence Scatter because, again, aggro matchups are just really bad for us on the whole. A Braid also in there against aggro, but mostly in there too against Godfarer's Gift. Negate is in there against control decks, mostly so that they can't disrupt our combo with counterspells. We'll counter their counterspells. Essence Extraction, on the other hand, not Essence Scatter, but Essence Scatter you play while they're trying to play the creature. If the creature slipped through the cracks, then you play Essence Extraction. This is also pretty good against aggro. Mostly because it helps us gain a little bit of life back and gets one of their threats off the board. The other 2 copies of Cannonade are in the sideboard. It's that good against really fast aggro. And the River's Rebuke is mostly against tokens decks. But there have been a couple of times where I've wanted Rebuke in the main deck. I just don't know if we can afford a 6-drop in the main deck. Although you can just turn over into Lost Veil with Glitness Crane and a Dowsing Dagger a lot of the time. So that'll help you get to that 6 mana. I'm really considering it for the main. I like the idea of, they played a bunch of creatures. We can just return them all to their hand. And if they want to play those creatures again, there's a price. Trespasser's Curse or Rampaging Ferocidon will deal damage to them. So I like the idea of main deck River's Rebuke. I'm just not sure I'm bold enough to throw a 6-drop in here with so few lands. And here are your power rankings right here. A final score of 56, which I wouldn't put too much stock into. This is a really hard deck to score. It's not traditional in any way, and these weird combo decks usually don't score well, but that's because they're not interested in the same things that a lot of decks are interested in. So don't take, the that 56 like it's the worst deck ever. Again, the deck's not tier 1, tier 2, whatever. It is just a really, really weird, fun combo deck. And if you like strange decks, this is a deck for you, you know? We tried to hit just to under $100 here. And in some versions of this deck will cost $200 or $250 in paper, depending on what you're trying to do, and the land base, and hostage taker, and all that stuff. I tried to get the budget just shy of $100 on TCG Player. And by the way, quick note, now that I remember, quick note on that, I've noticed that TCG Player has been including the price of full art unstable basics since they were spoiled, and those are expensive. So that's been upping the average price of the deck once you click on the link and view the price on their website. Just sub in regular basic lands, and that'll dramatically drop the price of the deck. I've noticed a couple of people commenting on that, like the $10 Blue-White Enchantments deck I made was like $60 because of unstable full art basics. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when you're calculating the budget for the deck. If it's way more than I say it is, that's probably the culprit. But anyway, that's about other things. Let's talk about the deck. There's definitely a progression to this deck. You know, we have drawn it up in this instance. You know, you can play Glintnest Crane early as a chump blocker if you want. You can play a Braid to blow something away in the early game. You got a couple of early game plays. You can even play Prophetic Prism to go ahead and set up your mana fixing and draw a little bit more into that combo. You got plenty of early game plays. In the mid game, you're going to set down your Trespasser's Curse, your Rampaging Ferocidon, your Panharmonicon, set things up, and then towards the later game, that's when you start dropping Dowsing Daggers. There's definitely a blueprint, a plan you're supposed to follow in this deck, and very often, surprisingly often, because we've got so many things that help us find the combo, it comes together. Now, whether or not you have the time to actually kill them with the combo and set everything up, that's a different story. You know, decks that aim to kill you really fast. I've already mentioned this, aggro decks especially. We are fairly bad against, and once a control identifies what it's supposed to be even playing against, you know, then it's pretty easy for control to shut us down too. So this is a very weird, very fun deck, and it's mostly for people who really, really like strange brews. This is the strangest one that I can think to bring to you in Standard right now, so I did so. You know, I'm a deck builder at heart. Not only do I like really competitive decks and really fun decks, I also really cherish weird decks, and this is easily the best and most fun and weirdest, most innovative deck in the entire format. So give it a shot, because it will surprise you sometimes, you know? Sometimes you'll get down to that last turn or 2 turns, and you'll suddenly draw a Dowsing Dagger, and hey, look at that, I got a Panharmonicon, 2 Trespasser's Curse, you lose the game, or I just gain a butt ton of life and put you at like 2 or 4. Yeah, that happens too, so you never know, man. This deck can really turn the corner extremely quick. That's what's up with the higher than usual, you know, or higher than average resiliency stat. The deck doesn't look entirely resilient, but it can gain some life, and it can just win literally out of nowhere because you drew the right 1 card. You know, now every deck has the ability to do that to some extent, but this deck is sort of built to do it. So like, I really like the fact that just like you can really take situations that you are doomed in, and if you draw a Dowsing Dagger or Trespasser's Curse, you win the game, or you're at least in it for a couple of turns longer. So try this thing out. It will surprise you, man. It's a Healy Ride with a Panharmonicon and a Trespasser's Curse out. 1 Dowsing Dagger ends the game a lot of the time. So really, seriously, I know I've already said this, give it a shot, proxy it up if you have to. The deck is worth playing with. But I'm tapped out for now. Remember, as always, if you want to see this deck all in one place, just go down to the description down there, click the very first link you find in that box. That'll take you over to my sponsor, TCG Player. They help me bring you content. I like them for that. So help them and help me even by clicking the link down there in the description, taking a look at this deck. You can also thumbs up the video if you like it. Just click that little like icon down there if you want to. It's, you know, it's up to you. You can also sub if you are new, or if you just haven't done that yet, now's probably the time. And you can follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev, or you can throw me a whole $1 bill a month on Patreon. And for that, I'll let you know what decks we're doing the day before we do said decks. So that's valuable information. So help me by doing all that stuff, and I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards.